you can never become the master of one thing and know it all, because there's always somebody out there that knows a little bit of something that you don't have an area of knowledge in.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a fantastic one. Our guest is the owner of Mutch Accounting and Bookkeeping, Inc., and she's also a Pure Bookkeeping licensee and mentor in our community. Lyla Smith, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you, Lyla, and every time we speak, I'm always learning something new, and I know many in our community would say the same, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. So, Lyla, please tell us a little bit about you and your career journey leading up to today.
I'm going to age myself, but that's okay. I started my journey just at about the same time that I started my family. So I'm going to say back in 2002, 2003. Family business. My father and grandfather are both CPAs, and it was a temporary job while I raised my family and my husband got his career on the go. And 20 years later, my temporary job is still my job. So yeah, I learned from the ground up. I learned bookkeeping from having a written ledger put in front of me with a bunch of bank statements and saying, figure it out. So I remember the first time that happened, I called my grandfather in tears going, I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you please talk to me? So I learned a lot in the many, many years that I worked with my grandfather and my father, and just learned how to bookkeep, learned how to tax prep, learned how the accountants like things prepared, and just a lot of the different background from starting from paper to moving it over to technology.
It's an interesting journey, and I would say it's almost, I could almost say it's like an old school way of learning the craft. You know, it's like the apprentice model of really spending your life becoming a master of something. I guess my question would be, how have you seen your trajectory in learning bookkeeping and being a bookkeeping business owner? How does it compare to what's in the industry today?
I find that having that base knowledge of learning the old school way, learning how to do things on paper with pen and pencil, gives you a really in-depth knowledge of what the technology is doing today. And taking that knowledge and transferring it to how programs work really allows you to grow as a bookkeeper, because it allows you to understand what the software is doing to help you and what you need to change to make the software work better for you. And I find that your knowledge base becomes a lot bigger as well, because you have a better understanding of what you're trying to do for your clients and what you're telling your clients, because you actually understand the background into what goes into it. And I mean, I started in a program too that was DOS based. So the old black screen with the orange blinking numbers and stuff. And to learn it that way was even an eye-opening experience, because you had to learn how these numbers all fit together and what they all mean in the end.
It's an interesting way of thinking about it. And, you know, it's not the first time I've heard that. Anyone who's come from that early start, but yeah, you know, well, where they had the opportunity to be connected to that era and mentored by someone who came from the era of the beginning, right? It's like
Hmm.
the basics, the foundation of accounting and how it all works has really excelled in their knowledge, and really they would be at the level of a master today. But then how do people get that if they haven't had that experience?
I think finding somebody who has that experience or taking it upon yourself to want that knowledge and sitting down and learning it yourself. There's still a lot of people out there, and I put myself on the younger end of it because I learned from my father and my grandfather. But there's still a lot of us out there that I still have several clients that prefer paper and pen, and I think it's just learning the craft. And there's people out there that you can talk to and mentor with. But I think it's also wanting to know that knowledge and not just wanting to rely on the software to do your job too. It has to be that deeper wanting to know exactly so that you can gain the knowledge and excel in what you're doing and make yourself be that higher level.
It's very true. My son is in martial arts, Taekwondo,
Hmm.
and he wants to be a black belt right away. And right,
Instant gratification.
yes, wants to be a black belt right away. It's like and he's very bold in the way he talks to his master Farah, his teacher. Like I think it was like a couple of days in, he's like, "When do we get the black belt?" It's like, well, you're gonna have to work. And so I constantly talk to him about, you know, being a black belt is not very um, it's not very exciting to
No.
get to become a black belt, because it's practicing every day. It's learning all these tedious things that you don't know why you're learning them. And it's frustrating for him. It's like, why am I even learning this? He can't see the bigger picture. And that's part of why there's not a whole bunch of black belts out there, is because they don't make it past the yellow and the orange in their journey because of the tediousness. And I think it's similar to any craft, and for sure in a technical industry like bookkeeping, where to become the master, you must get the foundation and master the foundational building blocks of the craft in order to be a true master.
Well, and you have to have the discipline and the want to understand the craft that you're in as well. If you didn't start with pen and paper, it sounds ridiculous to want to go back and learn pen and paper. But
It does.
can you sit there and tell me? Can anybody sit there and say, "Well, I know exactly what I'm doing because the software, is telling me that I know what I'm doing." But do you understand it? Do you understand the foundation? Do you understand the meaning? And that's discipline. That takes a true passion for what you're doing to want to sit back and go, I understand the software, I understand the ins and the outs, but to understand the actual foundation of what I'm doing and producing, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do a set on pen and paper. Because you can't you there's no margin for error. Zero. If it doesn't add up, it doesn't add up. Now, the software will correct you if it doesn't add up.
Mm.
Sitting and spending an hour looking for 2 cents in a ledger does not happen when you have software finding that 2 cents for you. So it's a different discipline to the bookkeeping world, and you have to have a very big passion to take the humble pie that comes with going back and learning how to do it on pen and paper, because it is
That's
a
right.
humbling experience.
That's right. Now, the long-term benefits of this, and I'd be curious to hear if you've seen where people have gone, oh, gee, I don't know, why do I need to know that? Then they learn it, and then they realize, okay, now I know why I needed to go and use the pen and paper, or really get trained in the fundamental basics of this. That basically aha moment, right, where the black belt goes. Like in the journey, there will be an aha moment for any
Mhm.
person who goes through any kind of training, where they're going to go, they see now I know why I did all of that extra work and practice and training of all these little steps because now I can actually defend myself or do the craft or whatever the case may be. So I would really be curious to know, what is that big benefit and what do they see or get out of learning the basics?
Well, and working with the CPA firm that I did, of course, there was a lot of outside bookkeepers that brought their stuff in. And the aha moment for me was when I could review what those bookkeepers had done in the software and realize what they had done wrong. But I always took the next step and I went to those bookkeepers and I sat with them and I said, so here's what I found and here's why. And I would always lay it out on paper. I would always sit with them with a little ledger and say, here's the journal entry that you did. Write it out the way that you did it. And it was amazing the light bulb that would come on when they would be sitting and writing the journal entry that they thought they put into the system and realizing that they had messed up the debits and the credits simply because the software told them it was right because it balanced. But then understanding by writing it down was like, oh, I did that backwards. No wonder I couldn't make things work properly because I did that backwards. So the software won't always correct your problems. And I have a lot of bookkeeping friends who still reach out to me and send me stuff and go, "Can you write the journal entry down for this, please? I just can't make this work." And so I will go back to pen and paper, write out the journal entry and send it to them. And then that light bulb comes on and they ask me the same questions less and less. Might get more complicated, but the basic stuff that I've sent them before, that we've talked about before, I see less and less coming across from these other bookkeepers.
Very cool. Very
It
cool. Very,
is.
very cool. And that's your natural tendency to want to be a mentor, teacher, and provide people with the knowledge, which is in this industry is very refreshing because many are like that, and you're one of those people. The end game though is that when people do that, when you knowledge transfer and share, and people have the passion, because there are people that you could say, look, let me help you, and they'd be resistant to that, or
There's a
maybe don't,
lot.
it's like, why do I need to know that? Why do I care? Right? There's actually a lot of those too,
Hmm.
which those unfortunately, though, there's two roads. Like, it's again, the people who take the high road or the low road, they come with pros and cons, right?
100%.
There's lots of fables, the rabbit and the tortoise, or the hare and the tortoise, whatever that. Probably don't think we
That
call
one.
that in our household.
That one.
Yes, the turtle and the rabbit there.
That guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So pros and cons, right?
Hmm.
But the people that do, what we know is that the people that become master in any industry are the ones that eventually can drive and deliver the greatest value, and then therefore should be the greatest compensated. And so there is a real reason to do this more than ever in the industry and the way things are going in our industry. More than ever, becoming a master of bookkeeping is very important if you want to lead people, have a team, be able to scale up your business. Being able to be a master has some serious benefits. What do you see in that area?
My biggest saying is that we can't all know everything. But if you put two, three, four people's heads together, it's amazing the knowledge that is in that base. So you can never become the master of one thing and know it all, because there's always somebody out there that knows a little bit of something that you don't have an area of knowledge in. And to me, that's a big thing. I'm thirsty for knowledge. I will go and I will take courses just to take them, even if it's a topic that I think I already know a lot about. I'll go take it because there's always that one little thing in there that I didn't know or that I'm going to make a note of. I'm not afraid to have conversations with people. There's that old saying of those who don't know teach. That might be true for sports and stuff, or those who can't do teach, right?
Big
I
two,
and
yeah.
I think that's true in sports. Definitely, those who can't do the sport are sometimes some of the best coaches in that sport. But when it comes to something like bookkeeping, those who have the most amount of knowledge, and it's like you said before, some of them are very, very protective of that knowledge, but the upper elite are the ones that want to throw that knowledge back to everybody and go, look at everything that I know. I want to bring you up to my level, because if we're both at the same level, you have more of an expertise on this, and I have an expertise on this, and together we make a mastery rather than just one person. It's a team of people where you can reach out and you can rely on that person. And it doesn't just make you look better, it makes it makes your clients better. It makes everything, it makes your business better, because you're like, you know what? That's not my area, but I know people that know these things. So I'm going to reach out to them and I'm going to have them help me with it. And it, in a way, it's humbling as well for you to look at your clients and say, no, I'm not familiar with that, but I do have friends that know that, and let me talk to them. And whether you get in touch, whether you put your client in touch with that friend or whether you do it yourself, it also brings you down to a level with your client too where they realize that you're also human,
Mm,
and they need to see that humanity in you, because you deal with some pretty sensitive things. You deal with people's finances, you deal with people's money. That's not something that they willingly hand over to just anybody who walks by their front door. So there has to be a humanity level that they have with you as well. And to openly admit that there's something that you don't know, but you have connections that you can get that knowledge from, is a big, big, big thing. And just that open and honesty with people is another huge thing. If somebody walks through my door and says, hey, this is the kind of business that I'm running, and it's not something I have experience with, I'll be honest with them. Never done something like this before, but if you
mm,
still want me to do it, I'll give it a try, and I'll reach out to my contacts that I know have done stuff like this before, and we'll put our heads together and we'll make something work. It's
mm.
it's funny in this industry when you see people that really guard their knowledge, and it's like, what are you guarding it from? We all make each other better if we share. And that's always been my thing. And I have I have a coaching background in sport. So to teach is a huge thing for me. But I was
Mm.
always able to do the sport that I was teaching as well. So I'm a big believer in, you have to set the example. And if I'm not willing to share my knowledge, then why would I expect other people to share their knowledge with me?
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why you're a wonderful member of our community, and so generous. Now, I know in our community, you mentor our licensees and lead. It's not like a top down approach. It's more of a flat approach where we all come to the table as valuable contributors,
Mhm.
and you facilitate and organize and do a lot of your own knowledge transfer around the technical aspects of bookkeeping, and helping our community improve and expand on their own knowledge and experience with bookkeeping. That's been fantastic
Thank you.
for our community and very valuable for our members. What when for people out there that are maybe listening to this that want to get more of that kind of ground up building blocks level training or experience in bookkeeping, what do you think, what opportunities out there do you think are available?
Uh, an opportunity is what you make it, right? I never shy away from talking to anybody. I never shy away from taking, like I said, I'll take a course, even if it's something that I think that I know, simply to have a little bit of background knowledge. I do. I do annual tax update courses. Even if I don't decide to do tax that year, I'm going to go do a tax update course. You'd be surprised the things that you know and the people that you meet. To me, I'm not afraid to pick up the phone and call the government and have a lengthy conversation with somebody. Explain to me why this is the way that it is. I approach everything as a learning opportunity. If I need to call the government and ask a question, I'm going to learn something when I'm talking to that agent, and I'm going to take notes away from it. And I've learned lots in the last 2 tax years with everything that's gone on in the world. And just talking to a government agent. There's so many things out there. There's a lot of courses, bookkeeping courses that they say that are out there through, there's what, ICS and Stratford and all these other places, these little online places that you can take bookkeeping courses. I've taken a few of them. They give you some good basics, but if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of it, I think you need to reach out and get knowledge from people that are willing to share it, that are already in the industry. I think a mentorship program is what's needed in this industry more than anything. And that's why I'm not afraid to share my knowledge, is because I don't want to see people fail at things that they truly have a passion for doing. And if I can share knowledge and help them out that way, that's what I'll do too. And Pure is a good base for that. Pure has a lot of good systems in place. And I think there's lots of good things coming with Pure that are going to boost that knowledge base for people as well, and give them a lot of access to it.
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely needed, because it's for our listeners listening. You might be the one doing the work, but then you also might be, or thinking about, having staff and developing your team. And so we're also developing curriculum to train and up level the skill of not only our owners of the bookkeeping businesses, which are licensees, but also their staff. As they bring on staff and train them in Pure Bookkeeping system, we also want them to up-level their technical skills and be able to progress their staff forward as well. Because, it's, again, if you're the only one holding the knowledge, it really does create a barrier or a bottleneck in the business.
Well, and as the owner, you're not going to be able to ever take a break if you're the only one that's holding the knowledge. So why not bring your staff up to the same level of knowledge as you, so that you're confident in the fact that you can go away on a weekend vacation with your husband and your kids, and
so
know
true.
that everything's going to be done according to your standards, because you have people working for you that are just as meticulous in the standards that you set for yourself.
So true. Maybe tell us a little bit about your journey with Pure Bookkeeping. What led you to Pure? And then what happened as a result?
I had a few friends who were kind of part of it, and it was something that they said to look into. I'm part of CPB Canada, and they have some back and forth with Pure as well. And I wanted to streamline my business a little better, not necessarily so that I could sell it, but just for my own. I'm more of a one person show simply because of where I live. But I needed something to streamline my business, streamline the way that things work. I've only been out on my own because I broke off from the CPA firm. I've only been out on my own for a few years, but it was time to get a better flow going for myself. And Pure has helped me with that. And I have been able to streamline my file system and streamline how I do things, and know that if I needed to take a break, I could pass stuff off to other people and it would be right there in front of them exactly how things are done. And so it gave me a good workflow. And I think the biggest thing that I've gotten from Pure, and this is probably not what Pure wants, but the biggest thing I've gotten is the network of people within Pure Bookkeeping. I have met so many amazing people from across Canada and into the US, and it's amazing to be able to have that knowledge base, and to be able to share that knowledge base, and to be able to just reach out to somebody on any level and be like, hey, I have a question. And they're more than happy to talk to you and share things with you, and to be able to help people out. I've had referrals, I've sent referrals, and it's a sense of community that you want to see in this industry is what Pure's brought to me. It's a sense of community, that to bring these people together that have this higher knowledge to be able to share things as well.
It's not the first time I've heard that. That's for sure. The people come for the systems, and what they find being a surprise is how valuable having a community like Pure Bookkeeping in their life is so valuable. And it really, it's not, it's one of those things that you don't know until you've experienced it, how valuable it is. And it really, we didn't even know, we've been in business for over a decade, and not really the community. Obviously, if you start when you start, you don't have a big community. So you kind of all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, we got a really awesome community. It's like, how'd that happen?
Yeah.
But it basically boils down now into three pillars that we operate in. And we have the systems and process to help our streamline, just like you've said, your business,
Mhm.
but then as well, automation. So how do you automate your business and build your workflows and have a system that drives all of those systems and processes and lets you either operate really efficiently as a solo bookkeeper, but how do
Mhm.
you operate really efficiently with a team and scale up your business? And then, of course, the third pillar is our community and all that comes with that, supporting, helping our
Sharing.
licensees like you, sharing, grow and keep coming together as a community, keep nurturing that community. And that's why we've really made it a pillar in our businesses. That's becoming what our business is all about, is just making sure our community is healthy and people can share and collaborate as best possible.
And there's no judgment. I think that's a big thing too. People get reluctant to share things when they feel like somebody's judging them. And if you go to some of these courses online, or even if you try and get a university degree of some kind, lots of people tend not to absorb as much because they feel judged. And I think the biggest thing with this community is in the calls and stuff. And I mean, modern technology is amazing for allowing us to have these meetings face to face with people from, you know, Newfoundland all the way to BC and then across the entire US, to have all those people in one space to be able to talk. And when somebody comes in and they ask a question, nobody judges them to think like, well, that's a real basic question. Why would you ask that? Everybody is so excited to be able to share their side of things to help that person fully understand it and embrace it. And they leave not only with the knowledge, but they leave with a bigger sense of confidence because they weren't made to feel like that was too basic for the discussions that they felt were going to happen in those calls.
It's a really good point. I'm glad you brought it up because it I would say it stems from our founder or co-founder, Debbie Roberts,
Mhm.
who experienced that through her career, where there was all of the groups, but a lot of negativity, a lot of nastiness in these groups. And so we really have a policy of, we don't tolerate bullying
No.
or negativity or negative criticism. I mean, there's like feedback, positive
Mhm.
feedback is, there's ways to present things and have conversations. We will not tolerate it. But it's also another layer to it. Debbie did not tolerate bullying from her clients. So it's actually like it's standing for acting decent and being decent to each other, not only in her business, but also what she experienced and wanted from the communities that she operated in. And she didn't find that when she was growing her business. And so one of the core foundations, and I'm the same way, it's like I wouldn't want to be a part of that. So
Mhm.
we've spent the last decade making sure that we either help people realize that how they're being is not valuable or constructive, or
Mhm.
we have them, it's just, we ask them to leave. It's just like, if you're not willing to, like, it's not like we just say, hey, you're a bad person, go away. It's, hey, what you're doing is not constructive, it's damaging in the way that you're delivering it. So either you correct, and most people do actually correct, because a lot of the times people just don't know that how they're communicating or the way that they're doing something is being judgmental or critical
Mhm.
to someone, being received negatively. And then there's the few that, that's just who they are, and they just eventually get weeded out. And now what we've done is we've created a wonderful, beautiful community with people like yourself that are generous and want to help. And it actually, that begets more of the same. It's like leading by example. And
Yes.
so it's rare. I think it really is rare. And I would say to our listener, if you're in a group where there's that kind of negativity, you have to go to the leadership of that group and say, either correct this or I'm leaving. And I would leave. I do not tolerate that in your life. Do not tolerate it in your business, from your clients, anyone. And and protect your staff as well. Don't let your staff be treated like that, because life is too short to deal
Oh,
with anything less.
and it's funny that you kind of bring that up from clients and that too, because I mean, working for family, right? I was protected in a way from clients that would come in, but at the same time, it was the aftermath of, like, you're the kid and you're going to listen to what I have to say, right? So I never ever wanted that. When I decided to go out on my own, it was like, okay, things are going to be different. And coming to Pure, it was the first time I had ever heard of a disengagement letter or a disengagement interview. And I've been laughed at multiple times, and I've been said to multiple times, I need to hire you, because I've had clients walk in and they see this woman sitting behind the desk, and I'm not a very big woman. I'm tiny. And they walk in and think they can intimidate you because you are sitting behind this desk, and I'm the client and you need me. And at the end of the day, you have to look at them and go, I don't necessarily need you if this is how you're going to come at me, because I'm doing you a service. And there's other people around that will take your negativity and work with you still, but that won't be me. And my concept always was, here's your stuff and there's the door, because I don't deserve to be treated that way. And the whole concept of sitting down and talking to somebody and letting them know that I'm not going to be your bookkeeper anymore, and and then thank you for the opportunity and stuff, it was never a thing in my world, because the people that I was disengaging from were people that were treating me with so much disrespect that I wasn't going to give them the opportunity to say anything back. No, I'm sorry, here's your stuff and you can leave. And the people in this community were in awe of the fact that I was that aggressive when it came to not putting up with being disrespected in my business.
So true. So
Feast or
true. There's
famine sometimes, right? Feast or famine sometimes, but I will make something work money-wise just to not put up with that kind of disrespect.
absolutely, and that's the slippery slope. And our listener, I'm sure, can relate. And we've all made those mistakes. It's doing something for the economics when it doesn't have it doesn't line up with the sound judgment of how we should be operating our lives. It's like
Feels like dirty money.
that's right. It's dirty money, and
Yeah.
and we're coming from scarcity, and it's like, gee, well, I really need that, and I'm going to put up with it, but only this once. But then it's a slippery slope. And there's a great saying that I heard several years ago, which I like to remind myself and everybody around me, is that we get in life what we tolerate.
I use that every day.
It's a beautiful one, and
It is. It's
it's
a
a
good one.
reminder. It's a reminder for our listener. If you're tolerating something, you're just going to get more of that, and so it's really a slippery slope. And that comes back to determining what's the life we want, what's the business we want, how do we want our clients to be, how do we want our day to unfold. It's life by design. And saying, this is what I want. Now, it doesn't always show up that way right away, but when you really get clear about what you want, what you're willing to tolerate, how you expect things to go, what you're willing to do to get there, you'll actually end up designing that life. And then you will eventually wake up and go, wow, how did that happen? How do I have such great clients? How do I have, the income that I want in my life? How come the people around me are so wonderful? How did I get this wonderful life?
Hmm.
It wasn't by luck. It was
No, it was by design.
by design, and a little bit of luck along the way, right?
A
So we
little
mix
bit.
a little design with some good luck, and wow, life can be amazing. Business can be amazing. So interesting tangent we went off on there, but I think a real valuable one for
Definitely.
our listener. It's a mindset thing. It really is a mindset.
It is. And if you have a lack of self-respect for yourself, your clients will know that and will feed on that, and you will surround yourself with clients that don't have a lot of respect for you. But if you have a high sense of self-respect, you will attract those clients. And those are the clients that will go out and refer you to other clients as well.
Love it. Standards up, pricing
Exactly.
up,
Yes.
premium up. It's like moving, and there's really never an end to it. It's like we can always improve. Each
Always.
day we can improve the standards at which we operate at, and that only brings more. It's not about perfectionism.
No,
It
nobody's
really
perfect.
isn't. Nobody's perfect. It's amazing how the time flies. I knew this was happening.
Yes.
I think we'll have multiple episodes with you, Lyla.
Sounds
Uh,
good.
but I would just like to know, like, to maybe end off, the last question would be, over your journey of being in this industry and now having your own business,
Mhm.
are there some key things that you really have held close to you? And we've uncovered some of those today, but there are other key things that you've said, this is really critical in my business to be doing or thinking about.
My biggest thing is open and honest. If I'm working on something and I've told a client that it'll be done on Friday and it's not, I'm calling that client on Friday and telling them it's me. I dropped the ball. I this, I that. It's taking responsibility for the things that I said I was going to do and I wasn't able to accomplish, because at the end of the day, you need that close relationship with those clients. And honesty is always the best way to get that. And I find that the honesty comes back from the client. You ask them for something, they say they're going to get it to you. If they don't get it to you on that deadline, they're the first ones stepping up and understanding that the reason that stuff is delayed is because of them. But that also breaks down into open and honest discussions with the people around you, with banks, with the government, with colleagues. It's the amount of knowledge that you can absorb when people see that you are this genuine person and you're not feeding them a line of anything. I just try and stay really, really genuine. My path has not been easy. It sometimes people say it sounds easy because I started off working with family. Do not recommend. It's
Mhm.
not the easy path that everybody seems to think that it is, but it makes you a stronger person, and it gives you these core sets of values that you take with you. um my biggest thing in life is I need to be happy, my family needs to be happy, and if my business is successful as I'm doing that, I'll absorb as much knowledge as I can and grow it as big as I want.
Mm.
Things will come.
It comes back to the black belt, right? When
Yep.
you're speaking of the family, uh, people. I mean, it's common for people to look at someone and go, "Oh, you got it so easy." It's like you're an overnight success, but they don't see the 20 years prior to that. I like to call it the 20-year overnight success. And and so with your family, yeah, dealing with that, there was lots of pros, learning the skills, but there was lots of, I'm sure, cons. What were some of those cons for you in working with your family in a family run business?
uh the separation between business and personal. um I mean, it was my dad, right? It wasn't like a sister or a brother where you have those little spats and you move on. It was dad, right? So when he would come down to my office and expect something, it we got to a point in working together where he would walk through the door of my office and I would look and I'd go, "Do you have your dad hat on or do you have your boss hat on? Because it's going to determine my response. I'm either going to respond like your child or your employee," right? Like, I'm either going to tell you to get the hell out of here or I'm going to say, "Yes, sir, that'll get done." So make your pick before you decide how you're going to talk to me. And that's a hard thing. It was a hard thing too. I grew up in a household where you respected your parents. You didn't call them by their first name, but it's really difficult to make a phone call to a client or even to a government entity and go, "So I was talking to my dad," and
Uh-huh.
and they kind of take a step back and they're like, You were what? Right? Like, what does your dad have to do with this? So I will never, ever, ever take away what my father and my grandfather taught me. They are the reason that I have the knowledge and stuff that I do. And I still constantly learn from my father. But it's that dynamics of working with family sometimes. And it's that, and then when there's family tragedies that I have been through too, but that's a different story for a different time. When there's family tragedies that you go through, it doesn't make it easy to continue the work dynamic
Mm,
because the both of you are going through something heavy. And so there's not that person in the office to pick up the pieces because you're both going through the life altering things that are happening.
hmm
And that makes things suffer. That makes work suffer. That makes it, and it ultimately makes home life suffer. And it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing.
And that experience, how do you see it as being like? How does it show up now that you're in your own business? Because obviously, any challenge that we go through provides some new learning, some new experience, some new way of doing things. Both pros and cons, again.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you notice about working independently? Maybe things you miss about working with family, or you're really strong at something now. I mean, obviously the skill and knowledge is big,
Is
but are
big.
there other things you notice now being solo?
I'm big on, I guess another expectation when working with family is that holidays aren't really holidays, right? You're always accessible to family. And so for me, the biggest thing about being on my own now is that when I take a holiday, I'm not taking my work with me. I want that break. I need that break. And it's something that it took me a long time to get ingrained, and it took a long time for my husband to be like, leave your work phone at work. Don't do that. Like, the kids and I are going camping with you and we want to go camping. And so that was the core value that I kind of took away working on my own was you have to turn it off sometimes. And it's okay to turn it off. And that was something that I took away from working with family, where it was never turned off when you worked with family, because as long as you were sitting around a campfire together, you could always talk work. And
Mm,
so now I've learned how to turn that off, and that's a big thing for me now. If I'm taking time off, I'm taking time off. I do miss the dynamic of being able to sit and throw ideas back and forth with somebody who has a greater knowledge on some things or a same knowledge base on some things, and being able to have that instant access to that person. That makes it's harder when you're working by yourself to not have that dynamic going on anymore. So building a community around me and building a base around me of friends that have that knowledge is making that seem less unreachable again.
mm. So true, so true,
Mhm.
and also it's great now that I'm sure the people that are in that community, and I know this for sure, are happy to have you because of your past and the journey that you've gone. You're bringing so much to the community in terms of them being able to turn and say, "Hey, how do I do this?" or "What would you do in this situation?"
And it's surprising in I mean, 20 years goes by quicker than we think. It's surprising the amount of things that you do learn if you're open to learning and if you're open to listening and absorbing things as well. I
So
shock myself.
so true, so true. Lyla, this has been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
I'd love for our listener to reach out to you, connect with you, and if they wanted to do that, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Because technology is not my friend. I don't have all of these elaborate things, but email is always the best way to find me. The best email is admin, ADMIN, at muchmore, MUTCHMORE.ca. And I will strike up conversations with anybody that wants to reach out to me.
Beautiful. Well, Lyla, we will have that, of course, in the show notes. And really want to thank you for your generosity on behalf of our listeners. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing your journey.
Thank you so much.
And with that, we wrap. another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast to learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources. You can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.